Just stick it in the building and say, okay, go find work over there. And the reason why I say that is...
Hello, this is Bobby with Making Media. The meeting will be starting in about 4 minutes, and I've started the live stream just a little bit early. Thank you all for watching.
Okay, we're hot. We're hot. We're live.
Why you, what has caused that? We couldn't find anybody.
We deal with it every day.
What do you do?
Well,
Come there next.
the best thing that we do is offer phone because whatever is trying to get work, trying to get whatever, I'll call the number and sit down and talk. Now, the definition of homeless is not just somebody who's walking around the street that's sick. It's Jane Doe who's kids and her heart broke down and that's just a number.
And I saw that.
That's where our phrase is, just trying to get those people back on their feet and into a place and keep them off the streets to begin with.
They don't know we must. Like it's like taking them there.
That's it.
Today's kind of the first really should have
Yeah. She said, well, I spent my birthday with y'all, I might as well spend one.
Even going down Town Square, you got the museum. Old jail.
They took them in.
We know that.
I want to talk to you more.
Little private.
This thing is doesn't want to go.
Got it. That's exactly right.
So I've been doing it.
So we really.
That's why you have somebody call you back. Okay now? Yeah, just leave. I'm not contagious.
Hope you don't get it.
I don't have my juice. Let's sleep in. Sorry. It's just everywhere.
People are going there to get loans. They're going there. They're deposit bank. They are.
I think it's just,
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I think we probably will. But I don't know.
good enough.
Oh, 7 o'clock, isn't it?
6 o'clock.
Right.
7 o'clock somewhere.
The lady that needs 414.
I hate to be a stickler for details.
Do what?
Hate to be a stickler for details. I'm gonna be another stickler about the minutes.
Okay, good.
And so I read them to it.
All right. As long as you got something. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'll call the March the 2nd meeting of the Franklin Town Council to order. First off, I want to say if you're here for public comment, make sure you sign in for the public comment period. If everybody that was here for public comments taken care of. Bob, you got squared away? Okay. All right, first item of business, Pledge of Allegiance led by Vice Mayor Barbara McRae.
Please join me in saluting the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Does anybody have anything that they want to add or change to the agenda tonight? Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Mayor, may we add a line item, maybe it could even be in the consent agenda, maybe for G, a street closing request for March 28th for the Vietnam veterans. They're just requesting to close Iowa Street from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m.
Yeah, let me expound on that just a little bit. It's not a parade or anything. It's just the Vietnam veterans want to hold a ceremony on the square, and they want that half of Iola Street closed down.
What was the date again?
28.
March 28th.
It'll be from 10 till noon.
Move we add to the agenda.
Okay, is that second?
Second, I was going to suggest we move F out of the consent agenda down somewhere else. Under new business, legal,
You want to move it to somewhere else?
can we?
I would think we can,
Let's move it, let's
if
move
it's
it.
approved.
Let's move F to new business and add G.
F, water and sewer allocation, the bypass.
Okay, you're going to move it to, would that be A, B, C, F, G, right? Nobody has an objection to keeping the Vietnam veterans on the consent agenda. Okay, okay, motion to add it to G,
And
on the
then
new
move,
business.
and then move the old F to the new G.
Second.
Okay. All right, just a second.
Yeah, second.
Okay, all in favor? Okay. All right, let's see here. Okay. You had something that you found in the minutes you wanted to correct.
Another date correction in the minutes.
Okay.
If it referred to, we approved the minutes of January 2019. If we could make it correction to January 2020.
Keeping Travis honest over
Yeah, I
there.
am.
Well, we did, it was just a year ago.
I know.
Donna's on minutes committee.
Yeah, that's me, police.
Okay, everybody else happy with the consent agenda? We'll just note that and make the change. We need a motion to do that.
Move to be approved.
Okay. Good. All in favor? Okay. Public session. Somebody got the sign-in sheet?
Yeah, it's like that on the job, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's no problem. Thank you, Councilman. Okay. Ms. Diana Thomas. You know, we have 5 minutes on the public comment section.
Hey, I'm Diana Thomas. I came in here to start a conversation last month on homelessness and especially a severe wet weather shelter. I walked out of here and 3 days later I had the flu, and I'm really just now getting over it. So I don't need to go get this. So I just am putting a face back. I don't really have anything to say. A lot of people did. They're giving phone numbers, but I've been so sick that I haven't reached out to anybody. I'm actually going to give up the rest of my time to the gentleman that's coming after me. So thank you, and I will be back every month that I can be here.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. Appreciate you very much. Okay, Mr. Burke, you're up, sir.
Thank you, Mayor and Councilman, for your time and sacrifice in leading Franklin. We really do appreciate it. In the February 19th, 2020 Franklin Press, there was an article entitled "Local Officials Weigh Needs of Homeless." Mayor, you were quoted as saying, "I don't think we have a real handle on what we're dealing with." I'm a volunteer and president of Making New Beginnings, a 501c3 organization here helping the homeless and those nearly homeless in Macon County. After 5 years, I still don't consider myself an expert, but I'm here to share what knowledge I do have about homelessness in Macon County. First of all, I wanted to give you a quick definition, but that's an oxymoron because it's from HUD. There are 4 principles that HUD has with homelessness in the country. The first one is people who are living in a place not meant for human habitation. Your mind can wander as to what that includes. An emergency shelter in a transitional housing facility, exiting an institution where they were temporarily resided, think jails. The second criteria is people who are losing their primary nighttime residence, which may include a motel, hotel, doubled up situation, and they say within 14 days. and lack the resources or support to remain in any kind of housing. The third criteria, or third definition, families with children or unaccompanied youth who are unstably housed and likely to continue in that state. Couch surfing comes to mind in that. People who are fleeing or attempting to flee domestic violence and have no residence or lack the resources and support networks to obtain the permanent housing. Many people ask, are there homeless in Franklin, Macon County? To this I submit the following. September 18th, 2019, Chief Adams convened a meeting that included town departments, county departments, various agencies, both non-governmental and governmental agencies, to discuss homeless in Franklin and Macon County. March 2019, on the 21st, the North Carolina Commerce Department convened a meeting with the Parole and Probation Office, local businesses, and various agencies to discuss those individuals released from prison around the country. Many of those folks come back to Macon County because that's their last quote-unquote residence they have. They bring them back, or if they're arrested in Macon County, they bring them back to Macon County. On March 3rd, 2019, the Superintendent Baldwin convened a meeting with several faith-based organizations and various agencies to discuss reaching out to homeless students and parents. Additionally, ask any town department, police, parks, legal, how much time and effort have they spent dealing with homeless people. Ask Macon County departments the same question. How much time and effort have they spent dealing with homeless folks? Ask any non-governmental agency, including Angel, Appalachian Services, Meridian, CareNet, REACH, VIA, MPP, No Wrong Door, Full Circle, Making New Beginnings, how much time we all spend dealing with homeless and the money spent on those. Many people ask, who are the homeless that we're dealing with? They're men, they're women, they're children, they're veterans, they're behaviorally challenged, they're substance users, and many of them are just people down on their luck. In short, anyone. How many homeless are we dealing with? We keep on getting that question all the time. One way to get an idea on the magnitude is to do a count, and that's what HUD does, is they ask all the communities around the country to do a count on the last Wednesday of January every year. Many folks, if you talk to people about that count, they'll say it's undercounting people. And the reasons are various why everybody thinks that it's undercounted. Sometimes it's dangerous to go in some of the places where homeless are residing to count them. Some places it's rural. I mean, you have to go to a lot of different places to find homeless people in rural areas. They're not concentrated in one area. Other has to do with weather. Other has to do with simply not wanting to be counted for whatever reason. So to give you a couple statistics, Macon County alone, 2017, there were 70 folks that we counted. The various agencies, REACH does a count, we do a count, Full Circle now does a count. So 70 folks. 2018, 65. These are unsheltered. We don't have a shelter here in Macon County, so these are unsheltered folks. 2019, there were 91. 2020, we haven't gotten any data back, but our agency alone counted 60, and we know that Full Circle counted 15. Just to give you a little back, kind of a reasonableness net check, you know, if you do one of those back of the napkin kind of things, U.S. total, there are 567,715 homeless. That's per the count. That same year, this is 2019, there are 329,450,000 people in the U.S., according to the Census Bureau. Representing the homeless is 0.17% of the population would be homeless. So just do some simple math. Multiply that times the county, the residents in the county, 34,624 in 2019. That's 59 people. That's at a minimum. 59 people are homeless on that particular day in a January. We think that number is low in Macon County because of the various reasons that we talked about. Just to give you some numbers from Macon New Beginnings alone, I don't have any of the other agency numbers, and we emphasize permanent housing. What that means is somebody calls us up and says, I need housing for whatever reason they need housing. We try to get them into a permanent location rather than putting them in a local motel. That's our two options, in a local motel or in permanent housing. It's difficult to come up with the funds to do both. So we encourage folks, if you have family or friends that you can live with until you can find a place. Nowadays, it's getting harder and harder. It's 4, 5, 6 months to find a place now to reside. Rentals are getting more and more difficult to get. So we're trying to help folks to get into those permanent places. Most places are asking for a security deposit and or first month's rent. Then there's Duke Energy to deal with, and if they're in the town, they have a water deposit to deal with. That's a lot of money to come up with for anybody. Okay, some specific numbers. 2019, just to give you an idea, we had 1,634 phone calls. 2018, we had 1,649 phone calls. That's people reaching out to us and asking for help. 2017, we had 1,167 phone calls. The number of people served in those particular years, 2019, these are people that we actually paid their rent or paid their deposit, that we helped. We actually put out some money to put them someplace or in a shelter, a local motel. 2019, 229 people throughout the year. 2018, 368 people. 2017, 230 people. Emergency shelter, these are folks on a particular day, it was cold out, whatever, we had no other, we're done.
Your time. Yes, sir.
So just some, can I use her time?
You used it.
I did already? Wow, and I had rehearsed this for a lot less. So I guess to sum it up is, we have a lot of information we can provide. I think the next step would be, and I really don't like committees, and sorry, but I'm not a real government fan, but I think the community as a whole needs to come together and start discussing what our options are in Macon County and to come up with Macon County's and Franklin's solution to this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Perhaps you could come up with a draft plan or something and get it to me if you would. Thank you. Okay. The next item is the street closing request for 8-ish flashback. Dave, are you here? I think we discussed this, did we not, just briefly? He was here the other day. Any discussion from the board? If not, I'll entertain the motion to approve the street closing as he presented it.
Let me ask a question.
Uh-huh.
For how long had he requested the street to be closed? What, an hour?
It's a parade, yeah. However long the parade takes place, and then aisle of the street.
I guess here's my thought process. If it's a parade that we normally have, they just finally block the cars at the top of Town Hill, let the parade go down Main Street, and then let the cars go. If it's for an hour, it's going to entail the whole circle. I mean, am I mistaken on that?
It doesn't take that long for the parade.
I don't think it does. I thought the request was for an hour.
Mr. Mayor and Council, if I may,
Yeah.
the request is to close Main Street for an hour. I think how we could, Iola Street, from management standpoint, I don't see an issue with it, but I do see what Councilmember Collins is saying, and I agree with what Mayor Scott's saying. What you could do is, instead of closing Main Street for a solid hour, is just to let Dave work in conjunction with our police department and treat it like we do the Mardi Gras parade or any other parade, where once the parades went through, then we can open the street back up. That way you're not closing all of Main Street down. You're simply just holding back traffic until the parades stopped at the gazebo.
You believe that's consistent with really what he's asking for?
I do, yeah,
I
yeah.
don't have any problem with that.
I was there last year.
Yeah.
And I was there for the Mardi Gras parade. And the only thing on the Mardi Gras parade, we had some people that had to stop and give away beads and it helped things up. But other than that, it was very, very smooth, very well done. Okay, any further discussion on Dave's request for street closing? Yes,
Motion to approve.
okay. Second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay. Reappointment of Charlie Pinkston to the Franklin Fire and Rescue Relief Fund Board. Madam Manager.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Council, what you have before you is a request from the Franklin Fire and Rescue Relief Fund Board. They held their meeting on February the 10th, 2020, and they're looking to replace a member who will be coming off that board. Again, that's kind of a state guidelines of how that board is set up. However, it does fall to the town council to make that appointment, and they're requesting that Mr. Charlie Pinkston is appointed to the Franklin Fire and Rescue Relief Fund Board. And there's not a term limit. I did look into that, so,
Okay.
in case that was a question.
Any questions? Yes, sir.
Motion to approve.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay. Budget amendment for the Franklin Fire Department. Madam Manager and Chief Breedlove.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I'm going to ask Chief Breedlove to come up. Kind of want to show you, I'm going to turn this request over to him, but he's brought, I believe, you got both radios? He's going to show you what we currently have, and then also what we're looking at, we're going to have to upgrade to. So I'm going to let him give you an overview, and then we'll entertain any questions about financing.
All right, thank you. Good evening, council. What I have proposed to Madam Manager is the allowance to buy new radio equipment. As you all know, we provide services in the town limits and as well as in Macon County. To operate within Macon County, we all operate on the same radio system as other fire departments. The county is making their way to what we call the Viper system, which is a state-owned system. Viper system was initially designed or built post 9/11. And the reason for that, its primary function was to allow interoperability between different agencies and different emergency responders. Roughly today, we have 50 counties in North Carolina that are using the Viper as their primary communication source. Viper system is still being built, however. Each year, the state allows a portion of budget to build new coverage areas and new towers. So basically, Macon County has reserved some spots in that. They bought equipment. Macon County was gracious enough to allot us a certain allotment of equipment. We bought 25 portables, which is these radios that we carry with us. And then we've also bought a mobile radio for each apparatus, being each fire truck that we have. So you may ask, what do we need, or what am I asking for? Basically, I have 7 paid staff, 10 part-time staff, and at least 25 volunteers as of tonight. So each one of us can't walk away with one of these 4 radios as we sit right now. The cost of one of these new radios is $2,200 to get it out the door and ready to talk. That includes the cost of the radio and a license to be operating on that system. Like I said, what's the gain? This old radio, as you look at them, there's not much difference. Same company makes them. They're different bands. The Viper system allows me to sit in Franklin, North Carolina and talk all the way to the state end, the coast, far end of North Carolina. I can select statewide fire and talk to any county that's using this system. They can do the same for me. They can select up and talk to me if they're coming to me mutual aid. With this system, we couldn't do that. With the Viper system, it also is smart enough. It's what I call smart radio. It's a digital format radio, and it takes the human error out of finding the right service area. So it'll basically do that for me. When you turn that on, it searches for the system, and it'll place where the strongest signal is, and takes my part out of that. As in the old system, I had to select my tower and my service point, and the system is really a blessing to the fire department. I think it's going to be the best option for our future and for the public safety as a whole. So I think it's really important for the firefighters each to have a radio. As many of you might understand, that's kind of a lifeline that we rely on. Anyone that's going to be in harm's way, I like to give them a radio so that they can talk to each other, they can hear the communication side, and they can make requests for emergency assistance if needed. So that's my request to you tonight. It's a life and safety issue, and that's why I thought it was important enough to ask for the funds. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Yeah, I do. You talk about interoperability. Do any of the other counties around us have this?
There is some working on this.
Are there any other counties that have this?
I don't know.
Surrounding us?
The surrounding actually touching us? No,
Yes.
sir. Swanee County is in the operation of buying their license.
Chief, I guess, what is your total cost that we're going to have to come up with to get these 20 radios? 20 or 25?
It was a little over 15,000.
15,000, okay.
Yes, sir.
Did we have any say-so in the county going to the Viper system?
All the fire departments met as a fire commission, so to speak, and had the opportunity to voice input from each department. And it was taken as a Macon County collective vote throughout the departments.
Did the county pay for all the other fire departments to fully have?
They divided funds to each department have a allotment of equal value. Yes, sir.
But that included us?
Yes, sir.
But they did not include the individual firemen having a portable?
They give us the matched funds of each department. So basically what we got was a specific fund, and we allotted it to what our needs were. I was able to buy the 25 portables, the 9 mobile radios, and then also a vehicle computer to go into one of the fire apparatus.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I had a little bit of experience with this in a former job. Just so for clarification, the Viper system was an outgrowth of the 9/11 attack, because you had all these emergency services on different frequencies, and they couldn't coordinate with each other. They had their own frequency for this department and this department and that department and so forth. And I'm sure the chief could tell you that when you have everybody on a different frequency and a different radio band, and you're trying to coordinate response to a particular emergency, it's almost impossible. So I think the state has been pushing to go to a Viper system, and I think, and it's correct me, is it the UHF or VHF?
Macon County in the past has had been operating on both. The fire side and law enforcement side operated on the UHF, and the EMS side operated on the VHF. Now moving into the Viper system, it's only 700-800 megahertz, which is
Well, it's a benefit to coordinate everything, and it is very, very expensive, I know. The only other question that I would ask, and it's similar to what the mayor said, as far as the county goes, what services, emergency services, communication services in the county are now operating a Viper system? I guess that's what I'm looking at.
all of Macon County EMS has switched to it, all of Macon County Sheriff's Office has switched to it, and now the majority of Macon County Fire has got it at least somewhat using and partially switched that. I expect within the next month all of them will be totally as their primary system on Viper.
FPD's already on there too, aren't they?
Franklin Police Department is operating off of a certain extent of that, yes, sir. That's their main, but they do have a backup system in place.
How much longer is the county gonna run this analog stuff?
I think this is the first steps away from that. Of course, the Viper is a digital system, it's a trunking system, and the analog just gets so much on it that it eventually is going to be no good to us. It gets overwhelmed, and unfortunately, when you're competing with other areas close to you, you get a lot of lead over in a lot of other agencies, and you're competing for the space. We've already done an air banding, and I don't know if you're familiar with what that is, but you narrow down your frequency range. And they've basically done every effort they can on that system.
How long ago was it? The forest fires we had?
2016.
Can you talk about radio communication when we're basically dealing with every public safety agency in the county? How this would have made that a lot easier?
It would have. We had everything from local to state, federal agencies in during that time. During those months, we relied on multiple systems for communication, but to have this system in place would have been a real benefit to us. You know, having the mutual aid come to you and say, you know, we're out to you, you talk to each other, know what apparatus they're bringing, what supplies they're bringing for the coordination of command and action plans have been a great benefit.
Well, tell me if I'm wrong too. We have some, not even countywide, but y'all have some deal where we need to bring in an expert crew from down east or something. If they've got Viper radios, all they do is basically just punch into our system and they're in there like they just like y'all, correct?
That's correct.
Yes, Joe.
Practically speaking, do we have a choice to either stay with the Viper and keep going with the Viper or going back to the Motorola days?
We have both systems currently available to us in limited capacity of the Viper, but our old system we're not taking offline just because it's already there, and I want it for backup purposes if the Viper was to ever fail us. But however, like I say, my intention is following in suit with the communications around me as a whole and doing the safest options with other departments' communication all on Viper. I feel that I have to do that to be safe.
So,
Go ahead. No, go ahead, sir.
there was an allotment of sorts, resources spread around. Just because our department's larger, we really couldn't spread the resources far enough, and we've got some limitations. Is that what some holes you're trying to fill in?
Yes, sir. Basically, each department was given an allotment and a list of equipment that they could buy with those funds. So I chose to get the most portable radios that I could with still allowing myself to put a radio on my apparatus. So I got the most portables that I could, along with putting the radio system in my apparatus. That leaves me about 10 short.
Just one more question, I'll stop. You're asking for this year, not for next budget year?
That's correct.
In the summer, where is the money coming from?
So the money, the budget amendment you have before you would be, when you take the tax portion out, the budget amendment would be for $14,166, and we're asking to take this from the fire department's fund balance. For the fire fund balance.
Healthy, unhealthy?
Very healthy.
I have one question as well.
Okay.
It looks to me like a large part of this expense is the licenses. So I don't know how long the life expectancy is on a radio, but like let's say that radio in your hand dies, you just buy a new radio and your license stays good indefinitely?
That's correct.
Okay. So replacing radios wouldn't be this expensive. You'd have the equipment charged, licenses are paid for forever.
I can buy both of these radios for about $700 a piece. The radio is not the actual expensive cost. To get on the Viper system, I have to have a license or a key to go to make it work, basically. Once I purchase that, it will transfer from another radio. All I've got to do is call the state and say, this is the ID, this is the number, this is their purchase. And
Indefinitely it lasts? There's a 10-year license?
Right now, there's no term on it. There's no 10-year license. It's they are doing what they call phase 2, But this amount that's been disclosed tonight and talked about would cover that, and that's to happen 2 years from now. But the amount that we're talking will cover that.
I guess you might say that you're dealing with an old Signal Corps guy right here. And the Army tried unsuccessfully to have what is basically the Viper system for interoperability. It became so complicated and so cumbersome, I think they finally gave it up. It sounded great. We still have people using Channel 2 and Channel 4, which also had simplex as well as duplex on VHF. Now we have a wonderful UH system, and we're going to abandon it when people are still using old Channel 2 and 4, which was put in by the LEAA grants back in about 1970. When it comes to radio, wattage is what's important. Every repeater is a weak link, and I would just have to tell you, I would be okay with you buying these new ones, but I would not abandon what you've got now either.
I agree, sir. I'm not looking to abandon what we've got. We do have a fair system in place, but it is getting aged. And due with the interoperability of emergency services, I think it's the right thing to do to join the Viper and make it safer for the public safety workers. However, I do agree that I'm going to leave the old system in our apparatus and leave all the firemen with their old system just for a backup system.
Yes, sir. Mr. Lewis?
You've already outfitted your trucks, right?
Yes, sir. I've already got it scheduled for them to install them.
If I'm
They're
not
not
mistaken,
currently
that costs
in
more
place.
than the portables, right?
Yes, they do.
So we've already taken care of okay.
Yes, I have.
But you've got both the UHF and the Viper system in each truck.
Oh, we'll have. Yes, sir.
Don't do away with them yet.
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am?
Can I ask a question?
Very briefly, yes, ma'am.
This 4G, 5G, what's going to happen whenever the country switch over to 5G?
Oh,
Will these still work?
That's an entirely different situation.
Entirely different system and situation, but yes.
It will, okay.
Similarities, they're both radio, but that's it. Okay, what's the pleasure of the board? Any further questions? Madam Manager, can we accommodate this money-wise?
You certainly can within the budget amendment that's presented.
Well, I will ask the board to vote for it, but Chief, don't get rid of your old system. This thing is not proven. It really isn't.
I agree with you. I think the old system should be in place and
We know it.
that's my intention.
We know it. Yes, Ms. McCray, you had a question?
No, I was going to make a motion.
Okay, make the motion.
I move that we take the money from the reserve fund and buy these radios.
You second it, Mr. Lewis. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposition? Okay. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Board. I appreciate it.
All right, the proposed budget calendar and work sessions for fiscal year 2020. Madam Manager.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Council, what you have before you tonight is a proposed budget calendar and work sessions. Just to go over it very briefly, March the 2nd, you've been presented the budget calendar to look at. March 4th, budget details will be presented to department heads if this calendar and dates work for you guys. April 3rd, departmental budgets would be submitted to the manager's office. And then April 6th through the 10th, we'll have budget review meetings with departments. And then the first work session that we're proposing with council to look at your revenue side would be April 14th, and that would be at 5:30 p.m. The next, April 15th through the 30th, will be preparation of proposed fiscal year 2020-21 budget. And then we would present the proposed budget to the town council at your May 4th meeting. And then we have scheduled another work session with the town council on May the 12th, and that would be at 5:30 p.m. also. And then hopefully we've scheduled for June 1st, a public hearing and adoption of proposed budget. Again, this calendar can change. It's just something, wanted to get some feedback from the board. This is what we've done in prior years, and just wanted to get the board's approval on this.
Questions or comments from the board? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adopt it as a draft, I guess, subject to change.
I haven't even got a chance to check these out. What day, there's no like weekend days on it?
No, they're either a Monday or a Tuesday.
Okay. We need a motion.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay. The fun starts.
I know.
All right, appointment of town liaisons. Madam Manager.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Council, what you have before you, it's actually, I put one in your agenda packet, but if you'll look, you've got an additional packet here before you. Kind of what we've got based on our retreat discussion and how we've done prior appointments is doing what we considered a town liaison and kind of filled in some gaps of where people, council members expressed an interest in serving. Mr. Mayor, Council, I mean, we're not really looking for action tonight, but just something, to consider.
As far as having the committee appointments, as we did in the past, where there were two board members, they pretty much knocked that down back in 2013. Counselor, you were very involved in that as well. Having two committee members basically would have to be a called meeting type of situation open to the public. So in January of 2014, those liaison committee assignments basically came to pretty much an end. And we've been just going as we have since that time. I reached out to the mayors across the state and I got quite a few replies. Some of them said they don't do it, some of them said do it with caution. And all the ones I got back were the ones that had the the manager council form of government. So we have come up with a possibility, if we do have the liaisons, it will be just one person to a committee. Not to a committee, but to a department. And those would be, okay, those liaisons would be for fire department, police department, sewer department, water department, streets, sidewalks, ordinance review, recreation, economic development, and the Nukwasi Initiative, which is a new one that we have to have somebody appointed from the town for. So that's that. What's the pleasure of the board? What do you want to do? You want to? Yes, sir.
Wasn't there some talk about a budget?
We had talked about that one, Councilmember Collins, and that's up to the board if you want to add that one. Got to thinking about that a little bit later on today, and if we go with this list, what you could do is really each department liaison could kind of be your own budget, if you will, because you kind of got thinking about that a little bit more. That may work a little bit better.
Could be.
If you want to come in while you're discussing that, I think you can feel free. Yes, Mr. Culpepper.
Is there any reason to kick this can down the road farther, or can we adopt this and just get to work on it?
Well, I've given you a list. Now, it is up to the mayor to make the appointments. I've given you a list of projected appointments. If you want to take it home and study it and see if anybody wants to change around or don't want to do what we're suggesting or what I'm suggesting you serve as, we can do it next month. Okay?
I mean, are you opposed to doing it this month, or?
Yes, somewhat, because I want everybody to have the chance to discuss it. Okay? Any further questions?
Is anybody uncomfortable with where we're at on with what's been presented?
Well, the Economic Development Commission, so I'm serving on that, and I was appointed by the county, actually.
You were appointed by the town board.
But I was also appointed by the county.
Okay, well then you could stay on as a county appointment.
Okay,
But we have to appoint somebody from the board,
it's fine. Yeah.
the council. So what's the pleasure of the board? You want to adopt what we've presented tonight?
I'd like to, but if anybody's opposed to it, I'm okay with waiting to.
Speak up, hold your peace. I don't hear any motions coming forward.
I'll make a motion to
Okay.
approve it as presented to us tonight.
Without delaying it for a month.
without delaying it any
Okay.
further.
Okay,
I'll second.
okay. Any further discussion? All in favor of adopting tonight?
Just a question, is this good for 1 year or more than 1 year or what?
In the past, it's sort of been from election night to the next election. All right, I didn't get a good count. Okay, all right, you got your assignments. Sewer line access for Almond Drive. Ms. Culpepper.
All right. Somewhere in the stack of paperwork in front of you, you've got a map and a couple of pictures. Most of you have already seen this because I've been riding this horse for quite some time. But the back picture is really the reason why we need it. And some of y'all, I'm sure, picked up in the consent agenda, the special use permit extension for Verbena was in there. So I guess they're going to continue, or hopefully they'll continue to develop along Siler Road. And anything on Siler Road comes down to this sewer line that is actually on Mainspring's property. And it doesn't have good access. We actually asked for Verbena to give us access, and that was a mild point of contention actually when they got their special use permit. Anyhow, Mainspring is cleaning up the land. They're restoring the riverbank, and they've gotten 2 designated federal wetlands on that property, which make it actually a little bit harder to access. And so what I'm proposing is a sewer line access that may or may not be possible on some old platted roads that are there. And I'd like to hear the will of the board, if we can give Attorney Henning permission to look into the possibility of making an access road. I've met with Nathaniel, the town engineer. He doesn't seem to be opposed to the idea, but don't let me put words in your mouth.
No, I mean, I think it'd just be a benefit if that was something we could be able to do. So.
We have access right now to go over people's property and tear up their landscape and tear down their fence, but we'd have to replace it. This would give us kind of a workaround of that.
The sewer line, this picture right here with the blue line on it, is that the sewer line?
No, that's the outline of their property.
That's their property?
That's Mainspring's property. That just,
But there's a green line that they've drawn on here that is where the sewer line goes.
Well, the sewer line goes all the way down there. I know it goes.
Right there.
Yeah, it comes all the way down. I know it comes down to the library and the SCC building on that side of the creek. And the other question is, this line was put in several years ago when I was still working with the county. And has it been turned over to the town or deeded to the town, or is it still in the name of the county?
I don't know that we have formally had those turned over.
I don't know, that's a can of worms I haven't seen.
There's a list.
You're not ready to go fishing, are you?
Things that we should have turned over, and I don't know what's happening.
Either way, if there's something there, we have to work on it, though. I don't think the county has a sewer department, so.
Well, I don't know whether, I know they don't have a quote sewer department, but I'm gonna give you a little bit of history. It used to be, we had a line that came out the old Murphy Road. It was a line that was put in from the industrial park owned by the county, but it was maintained by the town. This is way back when you were still in junior high or high school. But the problem we had was that people had to go to the county to get permission to hook onto the line. Then they had to go to the town to get the town permission to actually make the hook onto the line. So some of that stuff is confusing. I think one of the things about installing water and sewer lines was that eventually they would be installed and then turned over to whoever, the ownership would be turned over to whoever is responsible for maintaining them. And as I understand what you're saying is we got several that are in limbo right now that haven't been.
There's a couple pickles that haven't been.
And this is one of them?
I know, I as far as I know, this is town, but.
So Jack, I think to answer your question, you probably remember this, when this project went in, the county took responsibility for acquiring all the easement from into the county. So all of this from Town Bridge in that skirts the edges of town, corporate limit. And then the town takes over somewhere past here and acquired all of those easements. I think the idea all along has been that some of those, and you probably know better than I do, are held as part of the collateral for the project. And when it was done and paid for, then everything would be turned over to the town formally. I think that with a lot of these, and so that one is, if anything, is a little more straightforward about knowing when a transfer is supposed to happen. I think we need to check in and see when a formal transfer should happen with those. I think they've all been treated as the towns to go ahead and maintain, however. And so in particular, where David's identified here, there are some places that are not, I mean, we have an easement to come in here and maintain them, but to get to some of these places is a challenge. Where he's hoping we'll be able to find a clear path would let us physically get into them a little easier.
Mainspring Conservation Trust, they haven't owned this property for a long time.
They have not, no, it's a recent acquisition.
Okay.
Well, a couple
I
years
dealt
ago.
with the person who owned it before they bought it. But as a matter of fact, John, I'm the one that got most of the easements on this. So both inside and outside of town, so I remember it. Some of them were really
Challenges.
fun to work on, I'll put it like that. But I was just trying to find out, how they stood now as far as who's gonna be responsible for it if something happens, and it's a line that we're servicing, and are we gonna be responsible for maintaining it? And so, I don't have a problem with one way or the other, but I'm just trying to find out what's going on.
Either way, this would make it easier for whoever's gonna get down there eventually to be able to get down there. Sorry, Mike.
Yeah. So you're just looking for an easement for
I'm looking for, my motion's gonna be to give John permission to look into the possibility of creating this sewer on access road,
an access road.
doing the research on the
I
deeds.
don't see anything at all wrong with that. I think that would be a very, very important thing to have. And I would support you on that.
All right, thank you. Mike, did you wanna say something?
Just want to ask John, and it probably doesn't apply to any of these lines anyway, but town used to require, what, a year maintenance-free operation before they take a line over?
And that's for an
We still
extension.
do that?
We do still have an extension policy, and since you mentioned it, it is something that town staff and I worked on and off, and probably too much off rather than on over the years. We really need to get back in front of the council to get you all familiar with where it is, what it is, and see what needs to be done to update it.
The access road, would it go over Verbina's property?
Oh, no, therein lies the pickle, is that there's some old plats that appear to be owned by nobody that we know and possibly 30 heirs. And
Verbena got their special use permit, the special use permit was approved for the Verbena project, I should say, subject to this commitment to build an access road that would come down off a real steep bank off the back. It still would be better to have, I mean, we still expect that to happen, but it would be better to have an easier access, which this could be if it pans out.
so I guess my motion would be to give town attorney permission to look into the possibility of creating a sewer on access road.
Is that your motion?
Yeah, that's my motion. Is that
Okay.
sufficient?
So moved.
So moved,
Second.
or seconded.
You said, he's moved.
Second then. Okay.
My turn to catch y'all in something. Okay, all in favor? All right.
John,
Okay.
I know how these land matters are tough to investigate. Don't retire on this one.
All right,
I could think of things I'd rather retire on this.
we moved, all right, let's get back here. Mr. Collins has to get out of here early tonight.
That's right.
That's what in?
Okay. All right, we moved from the consent agenda, the water and sewer allocation for 4501 Highway 441 bypass to G. Who wants to?
Oh,
Yes, ma'am.
I just had a couple of questions.
Well, she raised her hand first.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, sorry.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I was just going to open it up. What you have before you tonight is just a water and sewer allocation request for the property located on 4501 Highway 441 bypass, which is the old Walmart property. So just a little bit of history. Mr. Mr. Kendall is here tonight, if you have any questions, so.
Any questions?
Oh, my question was, is it a similar water and sewer allocation to what it is presently?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
And even if it is an increase in water and sewage, do we have the capacity for
You do at this
increased
time.
usage?
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
We're gonna add a water tank on that end of
Thank
town.
Yeah,
goodness.
we're gonna get some real
Good-
pressure out there.
Good
yeah.
foresight there in
Yeah.
that acquisition.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay, somebody wanna make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
All right. Somebody wanna second it? All in favor? Okay, takes care of that, sir. Okay, legal, update on 441 sidewalks. Madam Manager and Counselor?
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Council, I'll kind of start the discussion. This had come up maybe 6 or 7 months ago by now. It was a proposal from NCDOT to see if the town was interested in doing a 80-20 match in the construction of sidewalks around where Wide Horizon is, all the way down to, really, you could go to Tractor Supply or Prentice Bridge Road. I know we brought it to council to consider, and I know John had come up with a couple options to look at if we wanted to pursue it. I believe the cost at the time was around, we're gonna round up and say about $38,000. The only concern, wanted to come back and update the board on, about 2 weeks ago, staff and I met with Duke Energy. And the big concern there is, one thing to note, if we did construct the sidewalks, we will need to probably look at some lighting. Now, there's no state statute that requires lighting, but from a liability standpoint, and then just from a perception standpoint, do we really want to construct sidewalk with no lighting? Okay, so there's one thing to consider in this request. The second item to consider would also be the cost of that. I can't give you a definite figure, but you're looking at probably up to $100,000 or more, because the last main line there, according to some representatives at Duke, is right there where where Pizza Hut is. So something to consider, an update if you wanted us to move forward with this. I do believe DOT's kind of wanting to move on this for the next couple, at least this month or next month at the latest. At least we need to tell them if this is something we do want to partner with them on. Just wanted to bring it to your attention that it may be quite a bit more than the original proposal.
And for my part, just to refresh, and for council members who weren't on the council at the time, was to say that under state law, you have a statutory authorization to have streets and sidewalks. It has to be, and it's explicit in the statute, that that's within your corporate limits. You can't just go build a sidewalk wherever you want to. You also have liability for streets and sidewalks that you get no kind of governmental, immunity from whatsoever. So it's a touchy area. What we have the workaround for that is that DOT, as they widen through there, is going to also survey and acquire easement all up and down through there, that if they were to voluntarily annex it in, and DOT has very little concern about that, there's no cost to them, it would be town property, and then you could maintain a sidewalk through there legally. I just, and in talking with Summer and Nathaniel about that, don't want you to get hit with a surprise cost that you hadn't really thought about if you do end up feeling like you need to light it all. I need to do the research. I don't know whether there are cases out there that hold a town liable for not having lit a place that people go walk, but I can tell you are at least going to make a place for people to walk, and when they go do that and it's dark and they fall down, they may well feel like they ought to sue you over it. I don't know. Can't promise you they will.
Yes, ma'am.
This was the area that we were going to do, that although it was part of the county, they weren't getting the same price as the town.
Correct. They get like a 70.
How would it play in to the county about the lighting, helping with the lighting? They always said that they would like to partner with that. We didn't know how we could partner the sidewalk part, but how would that play into it if they wanted to assist? I mean, it's beneficial to the county,
Right.
because of the area.
We could certainly ask. I do think cost could be a huge factor even on their end. Not speaking for them, it's just,
Right.
from the town standpoint, if you were to ask town from a budget standpoint, it would hinder us, and I'm afraid they may have the same concern.
The cost we're talking about, the extra cost, it's not the physical sidewalk, it's the lighting infrastructure.
That we need to consider.
In the way we pay for lights is, we don't actually pay for the light and the pole, we pay a monthly fee to Duke indefinitely.
Correct.
That's where the 100,000 comes from?
No, you're gonna have to put
We would have to pay for the
installation
instruction.
first, yes.
And the state's not, that's not part of an 80/20 match or anything like that.
Because there's no state statute that requires you to light the sidewalk, so there's no.
Okay, fair enough. So that goes back to really, it's a, I guess, a philosophical, for lack of a better. We could spend, I think it was $32,000 or $38,000 for a mile and a half or something like that of sidewalk that would allow people to walk safer because they are walking there, and not light it. Or we could do nothing and they are going to keep walking in the road.
I think I have a question, and it is the expenditure of that money, when I wonder what the advantage to town residents would be.
There's quite a few parcels down there that pay in-town taxes, so.
Such as?
The Murrieta property that's gonna be developed one day, Thai Paradise, the Fast Stop, and I think there's several other, and that whole corridor is, I mean, that is gonna be in town. I mean, they're gonna keep annexing into town in the next decade or so. It just, we're 10 years from now, we're gonna say, why is there not a sidewalk down there? Because there's businesses and there's a busy road down there. So my impetus for wanting the sidewalk was forward thinking that people are already walking there, they're gonna be walking there more, there are in-town properties there. The lighting is a pickle.
And I do think that if the DOT voluntarily annexes in that property, you kind of are opening a, invitation for other properties to think about voluntary annexation. Not that they can't now, but.
Which comes first, the annexation or the sidewalk? Will the sidewalk make annexation better? And how do you explain to a lady whose town street has never had a sidewalk and they've asked to have one? And they live in town. Yes, ma'am.
What time frame are we talking about just on the sidewalk? If DOT tried to acquire the right of way and before a sidewalk got built, what time frame?
Oh, you're several years out at least, but as far as a commitment from the town.
Right.
They wanted to know yesterday.
But,
yeah.
Okay.
Bob, I can answer your question about in-town living, city. I live in a neighborhood that's, I guess it's new, even though it's old, that's in a much older neighborhood that has paid town taxes for, God, I don't know, 60 years. My neighborhood's paid it for 30 years at least, and there's not any sidewalks there. We need them, but I'm certainly not advocating for sidewalks there because it's safe enough to walk in the road, at least in my neighborhood. On 441, it is absolutely not safe to walk in the road, and people are walking in the road. And that is, there's part of it that's in town now, and all of it's going to be in town in the not distant future.
You say there's no state statute, but is there anything within DOT's? I mean, when they built this new bridge down here, they were not going to build it unless it had a walking path on it. That was part of their core philosophy that they had to follow. So there's nothing within their
We have battled
in-house.
that and battled. No. Mm-mm.
Because they weren't going to build that bridge unless it had a pedestrian path on it. Because
Right.
that's all they do. That's part of their new philosophy. That's all they do. So I was just wondering if there was something within their
We've actually been in
design
on,
philosophy now that required it.
Well,
A
and
little
that
bit,
philosophy is probably
yeah.
what gets us as far as the 80/20 offer on
Yeah.
a sidewalk, but it doesn't take that next step of also has to be lit.
we've struggled right now with them even trying to get them to light their roundabouts.
Let me ask you this, would having a sidewalk walk there, would that entice anybody to annex, to allow the town to annex them?
I think it would make it a little bit easier, yes, sir. I'm not saying it, I can't promise you one way or the other.
Well, I know,
think it's-
that's something I don't think,
I just think it's an expression of the council's direction that we think we're gonna grow in area. That's a growth.
Well, you've got a situation now where we can't involuntary annex if we put the sidewalk there.
I'm not saying you can. There's basically no involuntary annexation.
Exactly. The legislature stopped that.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you're ever gonna grow, I think that there's only a limited number of tools that you have anymore to do that. And one of them would be, where are we gonna offer infrastructure? And that could include sidewalks in this case.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'm trying real hard to get behind David because I think this is it's wise to think ahead, and now's the time to think ahead. And it's not a whole lot of money for a whole lot of sidewalk. And kind of wish the county would be as excited about it as some of us on the town are. My question is, if we just tell them no, it's no. If we tell them hold us the table, how long do we have to cancel the reservation?
Once you enter in that agreement, it's final. And that's kind of where we were almost 6 months ago when they first started kind of us talking about it. Once we sign that agreement, we're locked in.
So what support there was, which was, I don't think if it was unanimous, it wasn't solid, real strong, for the 36,000 now has been diluted somewhat because of the thought about lighting. Is that kind of where we're at?
So the lighting, you have to arrange for the lighting now?
You don't now, it's just
It's
something.
cheaper now?
No, not necessarily. It's just something to think about.
Well, I mean, can you go ahead with the sidewalk? I mean, like the Depot Street extension, I know that was done with no lighting, and the lighting was done later.
And you can certainly do that, just.
Is that, I mean,
That's my question. Are you opposed to having a sidewalk that we didn't light?
Just get ready for the backlash.
But I guess, again, back philosophically, is a dark sidewalk better than no sidewalk?
That's the question.
Well, and so I don't mean to sound mercenary about it, I'm only doing it on your behalf, but what I've told you is you can't legally have the sidewalk unless you have, not title, but you have, it's contiguous corporate limit property. There's a way to make it that. If you do that, and now you have a sidewalk, you have to maintain it because the liability for a municipality on the sidewalk is pretty brutal. I hadn't looked at whether or not having it lit or not is another aggravating factor in that. So I'm not against it at all. But the person who's walking, and this is where I'm getting mercenary about it, the person who's walking down 441 right now, out of the town limit and runs into trouble because they're on an unpaved area, you don't have any liability for. In a year, or in 3 years, whenever the thing's built, they walk down an unlit sidewalk and fall over. I'm not saying it's a good claim, I'm not saying it ought to happen, but it can happen, and then you're potentially on the hook for it, unless you're defending it.
Ms. McCray, we had a question.
well, solar lighting it's progressing in leaps and bounds. I'm just thinking, you're saying it's going to be a couple of years before this is completed. Could we research solar outdoor lighting of that? I mean, it may not be possible, but it may be something that's about to happen. I see some incredible things that I never thought would happen with solar.
Yes, ma'am.
If we approved it tonight, we're approving the sidewalk that we determined would be a great savings that the county could not get and would benefit a lot of people. I'm thinking one day with the lighting and everything, how pretty it would be coming in to town. But we have plenty of time to research lighting options and to see, we're way down the road from putting lights on there. And maybe the county could, because we saved them. I mean, I had conversations with one of the commissioners who said we would love to work out some kind of partnership about that, but we would have plenty of time to work on lighting, with it being years.
But the county would get as much advantage out of this as the town
Right,
would.
but they couldn't get the savings the town got.
Almost.
If it's good for the town, but it wouldn't work for the county. Is that right?
Right, wasn't
The-
it way more expensive for the county?
It's just their match is different. If they
Oh.
did it, it was gonna be it's a 70-30 and ours is an 80-20. Keep in mind maintenance though of your sidewalks. I just throw that out there too because we have so many, and understand exactly where Councilmember Culpepper is coming from. I just throw this out there because I feel like obligation from a budget standpoint. I mean, we have so many sidewalks out there right now that we're trying to start in-house to do. And this may sound really good right now up front, but just, I encourage the board to think about long-term maintenance, it being outside of your municipal bounds, and then also the potential overhead cost of installation of lighting and then the monthly bills. And all of that comes out of your general fund.
What about when some of those property owners you're talking about want to cut our sidewalk in two so they can have access to their property?
They'd have to repair it.
Huh?
They'd have to repair it.
Well, would they, to our standards? We would hope.
Well,
Yes, Mr.
DOT
Horton.
would regulate that too,
Mr.
once there's a
Horton,
sidewalk there.
Is this the only option? You gotta have sidewalks or don't have sidewalks. Have they ever discussed the possibility of putting in bike paths? Some places have bike paths, so they use them for both bike path and sidewalks.
That's a better, if DOT would do that.
That's the best
yeah.
option,
I agree with,
I think.
Is that on the table?
they've not approached us with that option.
Can we reapproach and ask them
We
about
can
that?
reapproach and then
Because
circle back
I
at your,
think, if I'm not mistaken, that's become, Mr. Moore, correct me if I'm wrong, that bike lanes have become, and Mr. Setzer, almost a part of all highway projects right now.
In a lot of projects, yes, that's incorporated into it.
So it's very possible this project will have a bike lane.
Yeah, this project has not gone to roadway design yet at all, so we've not seen anything from that.
That might be a great
Yeah.
option. What y'all think? The bike
If
lane.
we got time.
If we got
We've got
time.
the
let
time.
staff reapproach that idea, that may
would
be
be
a more
great.
viable.
Let's do that. If that's,
I think it's
okay.
a good idea. I think it's something worth looking into.
No.
Well, like I said,
I know one thing, there's a lot of people on bicycles
There are.
around here right now.
And I wouldn't discount,
they wouldn't build it otherwise.
it's maybe pie in the sky, but I wouldn't discount a lot of the businesses along that way sponsoring a light or two.
It's a good point.
You know,
Possible.
put their
Yes,
name on it. And if they had a solar panel up there to start with and then a sponsor or
But
something,
if
who
it's,
knows, you know?
but if it's a bike walk lane,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's,
Okay, we're gonna reapproach it. Is that feeling that I get from the board? Okay. Discussion on substance abuse partnership with Macon County. Madam Manager.
yes, Mr. Mayor and Council, what you have before you tonight is an opportunity to have a partnership with Macon County. There's a proposal in your packet. This would be to look at allocating some funds for a substance abuse counselor. And this would be a partnership. Macon County has voted on this, they've approved it. From their standpoint, they're willing to take on the partnership opportunity with no wrong door. They're asking for a commitment from the town of $20,000. Back when we did our budget prep last year for this current fiscal year for 1920, in the governing board's other professional services, we did put some funding in there for $20,000 in case any opportunities like this occurred. I do believe Ms. Jenkins, Sheila Jenkins, is here tonight. If the board has any questions from her or of her, she's been a great resource to work with for No Wrong Door as well. So
That's a question I have, and Bob, you're still here. What percentage of homeless due to substance abuse? Just off the top of your head.
Yeah, probably, we're probably higher than I would venture than some other communities because of opioids, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You just have to look at the paper at any point in time and see that.
So something like this could have an impact on the homeless.
Yeah, and I would think we're probably 13 to 20% plus some of the population has some sort of use issue.
Thank you, sir. Any questions from the board? Okay, so I guess what we need, a motion,
I'd like to move that we proceed with this.
okay? Second?
Before you vote, I just do want to point out, I've reviewed the agreement. It's fine for what it is. What it is not is a three-party agreement. Your town is not a party to this as it's drafted. You are basically leaving it with the county to administer. I don't really have any fundamental problem with that. I mean, it's the county's jail. I just wanted to make clear it's not, I don't know if anybody reviewed and saw, you're a party just by contributing, but not really.
We're funding it at the level we approved at the last.
We're limited
budget.
part.
We're limited.
Limiting to the 20,000.
I think that's good. We don't have staff to do this.
Okay, we had a motion and a second. Call for the vote. All in favor? Unanimous, okay. Discussion on outdoor seating areas. Counselor?
Mr. Mayor, I think you're all aware at this point we've had quite a bit of interest from more than one business actually about, of course, Roland Knox, Rock and Roll Polly being a prominent example. He's really kind of led the charge on this, but there is some interest from town businesses about being able to serve in an outdoor seating environment. That would mean, being able to serve beer basically on the border of the sidewalk. You currently, as we've revisited a couple of times in your current ordinance 130.01, have a ban on any kind of alcohol on a sidewalk whatsoever. So what is in your packet first is a draft ordinance that would amend that to say, we've already amended it a couple of times for a couple of things that have been newer developments. This would amend it again to say if somebody has a permit to have an outdoor seating area, which is under this new ordinance, then that also would be permitted. So the ordinance itself, again, discusses these areas as outdoor seating areas. I think that this would allow you have the town ordinance that prohibits the sale and possession of alcohol on sidewalks. You then have state ABC law that regulates that and says under certain circumstances, if it's not otherwise unlawful to do, you can have an ABC permit that extends out to those areas. So that's what this permitting scheme is meant to do. This is based on a very scaled down version of what they do in Raleigh that I think incorporates the state law on this. We need to, so this is merely for your discussion and review tonight, but I think we will be bringing it back to you for a look at approval in April. In that time, I want to have checked thoroughly with ALE and NCDOT to make sure they also agree. And I think you may, based on a statute that Roland brought to our attention at a couple meetings back, his last meeting, need an agreement with them that we have this ordinance and this is how we're going to permit folks that are happen to border NCDOT state highway system roads. So I'm happy to answer any questions about it. There were a few details I wanted to bring to your attention. On the second page, we talk about, and this is again in the draft ordinance or in the enacted ordinance that we were kind of using as a model, talks about leaving a path for sidewalk in between where the restaurant is and the seating area. And I've seen this since, I didn't really get it when I first read it, but if you ever go over to Hendersonville and the way that they've, it's a bulb out heaven there on the sidewalks are everywhere. They actually have some areas where it's, restaurant here, 5-foot sidewalk, and then a seating area all the way over here next to the street. I don't know that you've got functionally anything that fits anyhow, but that's something I would like your input on and by the April meeting, whether or not you want to just limit it to adjacent to the building, sort of like how Roland has presented to you in the past. And I've noted for you in here some other things to just be thinking about as we come down to hopefully approval in April. Summer is working with town staff to look at what the fee would be. We don't quite, I don't know if you have that yet.
Based on, from our ordinance review meeting, one thing that we had looked at was how to properly mark where the boundary would be. And one of the suggestions that Attorney Henning had was to look at a medallion. We've not looked at cost yet on that, but that would be something that we need to factor into that if this is something the board's wanting to move forward with for a fee structure.
And that, again, is something that was in the model ordinance that we modeled this on. I don't think it's got to be terribly expensive or fancy or anything, but I think you might want it to look nice. And from an enforcement standpoint, what Danny tells us is that really would be a better idea, because you need something permanent to mark where things start out, so you don't get a drift of, what was 5 feet and now is going down to nothing on the sidewalk. So that's his suggestion. Again, happy to answer any questions you have. It is important, though, that we try, because of the way that ABC permitting has sort of a cycle, if this is going to happen this year, we need to get approval in April, because then that'll let Roland or Sart apply for an extension of his permit for next year.
And the
Yes, sir.
tables that I'm getting, I mean, I haven't purchased them yet, because I was just making sure it all went through and all that, but it's basically, the tables are gonna be out there 24/7, so it's gonna be out there, so it's not, tables aren't gonna move, the seating ain't gonna move, I mean, the chairs will come in at night, so it doesn't blow all over the place, but it's just, the tables are gonna be out there 24/7.
Okay.
And I'm making sure it's tables that are gonna be nice for the town, that ain't gonna be junk tables out there, so, I mean.
Let me ask the board a quick question. Does anybody have or see a downside to this? You? I don't. Does anybody else? Let's move on this as quick as we can. Mr. Rowland's been very patient about it. If we can move on it, I think we need to. Tourists will be in here pretty soon.
Yeah.
So I'll be asking for the council's approval in April, give me your thoughts
Okay,
and questions.
good deal. Come back with a solution to it. Okay, I have one thing I want to bring up real quick, like, has anybody ever tried to turn left off of the 4-lane in a slow rain at night and get on East Main Street?
It's tough.
It is a disaster.
It is.
I was on a one-way, I was going the wrong way before I realized I had not gotten, we need some lighting there, bad.
That's not.
So that's a terrible intersection, no doubt about it.
This is the Bojangles intersection, right? That DOT's messed with a
Do
couple
you want to
times.
make fun of the Bojangles?
No. I'm just saying with HCA and some
I know.
medical offices going
We
there,
need
that
some
whole
lighting
intersection is
there.
going to have to be
It is.
revamped again. So
It really is. David, you're exactly right.
it's bad. And an access road going down in front of the old bowling alley up there would have been beneficial too.
Let's go around the table real quick. Mr. Horton, you have anything, sir?
I do appreciate the photos that you sent us on the homeless gathering places.
Yes, sir.
It's a real eye-opener.
It is, isn't it?
And most of the people, I think, not just in town, but around the county, don't realize how much of a problem it is. I appreciate Bob
Yeah.
coming and shedding some light on that situation. I think there's a lot of questions that are left to be answered. We know basically from what he said who the people are, different categories and so forth. I guess my other questions would be, what can we do if we can put them in a shelter overnight? What do we do after that? I don't know. I don't know if anybody's come up with a good long-term solution to that or not, but we need to find out, don't just hit it and forget about it, because that's not going to, if you put them in a shelter overnight, that's good. Get them out of the cold. That's great. But if you just give them one night and they go right back out there again, they're right back in the same situation. You haven't solved the problem. So I think it's going to have a comprehensive approach. But I do appreciate you sharing that information with us, because I think it was very helpful.
Danny and I made an observation. Every one of those homeless type camps, what we used to call hobo jungles in my younger days, is within a short walk of a fast food restaurant. Wasn't that right, Danny?
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Okay. Mr. Lewis, sir. Ms. McRae.
I'd like to thank our town manager and everyone who was involved in the retreat. I thought it was really good. So, thank you.
It was very good. Ms. Baker?
For me.
Mr. Culpepper.
Nothing for me.
Mrs. Collins. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn as soon as I give you the announcements. Public input for the town of Franklin comp plans, Wednesday, March the 4th at 5 o'clock. Talk it up, try to get folks there if you will. It's at Tartan Hall. Retirement ceremony for Detective Tracy Chastain will be Thursday, March the 19th from 12 noon to 2 p.m. right here in the town hall. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I do have something to say, Bob.
Okay.
Just for the media, I guess they're probably already publishing it, but the Forest Service is actively soliciting input on their, I think it's like an 8 to 10, 15-year plan of what the use of the Forest Service land is going to look like in Macon County. Anybody that's interested in outdoor rec on Forest Service land should attend and give input.
When is that?
Good point.
I don't know. It was emailed to me today and I didn't print it out.
Is it what I emailed?
Yeah. March 26th or something.
I can tell you right now.
March 24th.
Somebody send it to
Be glad to.
March 24th at Tartan Hall. What time, Bob? You know?
5:30 to whatever.
And there's actually a real possibility that we could get some designated land for mountain biking or that type of outdoor sports.
Okay, no further business? I'll entertain a motion, we adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Sorry, Donna. Gotta get there quick.
Someday I want to see somebody object. Just for the pure heck of it.
Say all those in stay here.
Okay, guys, good meeting.
So if somebody gets run over on the highway, in front of a town place.
Guess he don't read my website. I've had that.